actually runs the Republican Party? Do you think it's John Boehner, the Speaker of the House? Do you think it's Mitch McConnell, their leader in the Senate? Do you think it's Mitt Romney, who just ran for president? How about Grover Norquist, that unelected bureaucrat? You know, the guy that they all pray to. Oh my God, I signed a pledge with Grover Norquist. No. Grover Norquist is a simple middleman. He just is the representative of the rich and the powerful that fund his Americans for Tax Reform and that get all these people to sign the pledges saying they won't do tax increases. They never want to do the tax increase in the first place because they all work for the rich and powerful. So it's not Norquist. It's not any of those politicians who are just bought politicians who will do whatever their donors tell them to do. It's the CEOs. And in fact, right now, they're in the middle of proposing debt reduction plans, which surprisingly enough are very similar to the grand bargain that both Democrats and now Republicans are pushing. Wow, what a wonderful coincidence. Who could have guessed that? Well, they've got this campaign to fix the debt. Here's the funny part. It doesn't fix the debt. It actually lowers taxes and hence might create larger debt. But that's not their objective. Their objective is to shift costs onto the middle class. Of course! They've got a CEO Fiscal Leadership Council, and on that council, one of the people we find is Lloyd Blankfein. Now, he's the CEO of Goldman Sachs. Now, first, let me show you some facts about Goldman Sachs before we get to his fun comments. Lloyd says, hey, you know what? The government shouldn't be in the business of helping these people too much through all these entitlements. That's interesting because in reality, of course, he got $10 billion for his company through a federal bailout in 2008. Now, when the government is giving him $10 billion, of course, it's hunky-dory. But that's not all. He also got a backdoor bailout of $14 billion through AIG. The $10 billion they at least repaid. The $14 billion they have not repaid, nor do they have any plans to repay it. So that is just money in their pocket that came from the taxpayers. Sad day for us. And they say, oh, it's not us. Look at AIG. Oh. Now the money got transferred over to Goldman Sachs, and that's how this shell game is played. So Goldman Sachs is doing fairly well. For example, in the last quarter, they made $8.4 billion. That's just in one quarter. So their revenues in 2012 are going to be well over $20 billion, likely to be in the neighborhood of about $25 billion. So they're doing perfectly well. Now, if you're a private investor and you put in $10 to $24 billion in Goldman Sachs to rescue them, you know what would happen? You would own them. You would at the very least own a giant chunk of their company. Now, the taxpayers put in the money. What do we get in return? Are we going to share in that $25 billion in revenue? Hell no. No. The bailouts are for the rich. The costs are for us. The profits are for the rich and the powerful and the CEO executives. So, for example, Lloyd Blankfein's 2011 salary was $16.1 million. Now, that's not so bad, is it? Well, Lloyd Blankfein now says, wait a minute, if you're looking for an entitlement program, by the way, they call it entitlements, that's because you are entitled to it since you paid into Medicare and Social Security your whole lives. That's not Lloyd Blankfein's money. I know he assumes that all the money is his, all these CEOs do, but it's actually your money. You paid into it. But listen to Lloyd Blankfein as he goes on CBS here. Watch.
You're going to have to undoubtedly do something to lower people's expectations, the entitlements, and what people think that they're going to get, because they're not going to get it.
They're not going to get it. That's a sad day for you, man. You think we're going to give you the money you paid into the system? No. Here comes the grand larceny. And the guy goes on TV and brags about it. He also said, quote, Social Security wasn't devised to be a system that supported you for a 30-year retirement after your 25-year career. What the hell are you talking about? Who has a 25-year career? Let's say you go to college, you come out and you start working, which a lot of people don't. They start working at 18 after high school. But let's say college, 22, 25, you're 47 years old. Who retires at 47 unless you work for Goldman Sachs? I got news for you. They're working until 65. They have 45, 50-year careers. Yes, and after putting into Social Security and Medicare all that time, of course they want their money back. But Lloyd and the other CEOs have different plans for you. Now, in their debt reduction deal, what would the corporations get? Well, they advocate for going to a territorial tax system. Do you know how much that costs the American taxpayer? $134 billion. That's savings to them, but that's coming out of our pocket. Because somebody's got to pay the taxes. If they get to save $134 billion in taxes, we got to pay it. You see, it's cost shifting. So the corporations and their executives get all the money, and you get all the pain. So what else is in their debt reduction package? Well, they do actually reduce the debt in some ways. How do they do it? Well, they cut entitlement programs and what they call low priority spending. I love that, because presumably what is high priority spending is bailouts for the banks. By the way, almost all the top banks are among these CEO fiscal leaders. Fiscal leaders. So high priority spending is bailouts for them. Low priority spending is anything that goes to the middle class and the poor. That's their plan for you. That's the plan the Republicans have, and the Democrats will agree to. Now, speaking of which, we go to one of the favorite CEOs of the Democrats and of President Obama. This guy's name is David Cote. He runs Honeywell. Honeywell sounds like a lovely little thing. They probably make jam, right? No, they're defense contractors. So, okay, now, if you're going to take all the money from the middle class, what do you think your tax rate should be, David Cote? This is awesome. On CNBC, watch.
What do you think the ultimate effective tax rate should be on corporations?
0.
0.
Yeah. The problem is, from a fairness perspective, nobody would be able to stand it. But at the end of the day, if you look at where jobs come from, they come from companies.
Oh, man.
And if we wanted to create the most effective foreign direct investment pipeline you've ever seen, we would have the lowest rate possible.
0. No, you see that if you wanted something that was really efficient at funneling all the money into my gigantic mouth where I eat it all up, my rate would be 0 and your rate would be tremendously high, and that would cut all of your Medicare and Social Security. Well, from a fairness perspective, I understand how some people might have problems with that, but anyway, we're going to do it nonetheless. By the way, how much in profits did Honeywell make last year? Well, they made $5 billion. That's a pretty good rate. I'm sorry, to be fair, between 2008 and 2010. So that's pretty sizable. So how much in taxes did they pay in that time? Well, in reality, they paid no taxes. That's right, 0. You see, that's David Cote's ideology in action. Now, their tax rate isn't 0, but they paid 0 anyway because they did loopholes and they did tricks and they did offshore accounts and they did every trick in the book, so that they're like, hey, you know what? I think paying 0 rocks, and I love transferring the costs onto you. That's what I'm going to do. This is the guy that both Republicans and Democrats revere. Oh, David Cote, CEO of Honeywell, all these CEOs, they're the ones who run the country because they're the ones giving the political donations. Wise up to it already. Now, we're not done yet. Honeywell, to be fair, they didn't actually pay 0 in taxes. They got $34 million. They didn't pay $34 million. You see that up top? That was a rebate to them. We paid them $34 million between 2008 and 2010. We paid them $34 million. See, that's cost shifting. That's taking money out of your pocket. That's how this scam is run. And it's so easy. These politicians are bought for a dime and a nickel. They're cheap sluts. So the Cotes and the Blankfeins of the world go and snatch them up super easy. Now, these guys who then give the talking points are government, bad, bad, bad. Well, let's take a look at 3 defense contractors, GE, Boeing, and Honeywell. You know how much they got in government contracts? Last year alone, $28 billion. What happened? I thought you didn't like the government. Turns out you feed off of the government. You live off of the government. Boeing alone got $22 billion in government contracts. Now, I understand they're defense contractors. They get contracts from the government. Well, then shut up about it. Stop pretending that you hate the government when, in fact, you love the government and you use it as a vehicle to kill off your competition, to do crony capitalism, and to funnel all the money to yourself. All right? And who benefits? Of course, the CEOs, the executives. Boeing CEO Jim McInerney in 2011 got a compensation of $23 million. See, that's how this game is played. Oh, by the way, I'd like to go back to my friend David Cote, because we're not done with him yet either. How much did he get paid? Now, remember, they also take billions of dollars from the American government in terms of government contracts, right? David Cote, who wants to pay 0% for his corporation, well, he made $55 million in 2011. $55 million, right? But he thinks his tax rates are too high, right? So why does he want to make sure that you keep the Bush tax rates for the rich? Now, he's willing to cut your Medicare, so he doesn't give a damn about you. Are you making $55 million a year? Oh no, well that's your problem how you pay for your health care once you retire, right? And he wants to take away maybe your home mortgage deduction, et cetera, which is also in their plan. So why does he care so much? Because just last year, David Cote, because of the extended Bush tax cuts for the rich, got to pocket an extra $2.5 million. Now, if you had $2.5 million on the line, you might buy some politicians too. You might go on TV too and say, oh my God, the one thing we do not want to do is increase taxes. I mean, we can do everything else, but don't you touch my money. They got that money on the line, and they're going to keep greasing those politicians until they got it all. Speaking of which, let me show you some stunning numbers from last year. We're in a recovery, right? Well, kind of. Some of us are recovering and others aren't. So median household income last year actually dropped by 4%. So most of us are not recovering. That's why it seems pretty ugly out there in the economy, right? Some people are recovering. The Forbes top 400, just 400 folks. Last year, their wealth went up $200 billion. $200 billion for just 400 people. Do you know that just the 6 Walmart heirs have more money than 40% of the country? Now, I have no problems with wealth. I'd love to be rich one day myself. I believe in the American dream. I'm hokey that way. No problems. But there is something wrong when after you make all of that money, you say, you know what? I want even more tax cuts. And I want to have the people who make the least, who worked, they're not bums, who worked their whole life. And I want to take more of their Social Security and Medicare away from them and put it in my pocket. I want to take away their home mortgage deduction. I want to take away their charitable deductions. I want to take away all the things that go to them. And I want to keep it for myself. You see, that is unbearable, uncontrollable greed. And our system allows it because the politicians get elected by collecting donor money from these same guys. And that's why the CEOs run our government. The real boss of the Republicans is not John Boehner or Grover Norquist. It is these CEOs. That's the reality.